Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am Jackie, and this is I Am Forever Faithful. Thank you for joining me. I realize that it's been about 2 weeks now since I last posted, so I hope all is well with everyone out there. Anyway, so over the past 2 weeks, I noticed an increase in spiritual warfare. I noticed an increase in battling addictions of all sorts. And I just noticed that some people may be or feel as though that there's a chance that they could go back to something that is not good for them, or having these strong urges or cravings that's associated with addiction. And this is what I know from addictions because I've had an alcohol addiction before, and I will share a story about that in a moment. Is that addictions are associated with, demonic entities. These addictions are spiritual, and that's why it's really challenging, regardless of the addiction, why it's so hard to stop. Because many times when you have an addiction, you want to stop. You don't want to do that to yourself or to someone else, but you continue to do it. And it doesn't matter what the addiction is, whether it's food or sex or alcohol or smoking. It's you know it's all sorts of addictions, but they are all rooted in negativity and in evilness. And so that means that this is really a spiritual battle. This is spiritual warfare. And it is a battle between the flesh and the spirit. And that's why when it comes to addictions, you just can't do it alone. You have to have some help from someone. And this is how I know for me it was a generational curse, that it's more than someone smoking or drinking or shopping. It's much deeper than what you see on the surface. Now for me, I grew up in a household in an environment where alcohol was present. Not necessarily smoking, but alcohol was present. And so I saw the effects that it had on those people who were alcoholic. I saw the effects it had on everyone else surrounding them. And it was, really toxic, very toxic for anyone to be in that environment. And I'd seen 3 generations. I was the third generation that I'm aware of that had this problem with alcohol. Now, for me, it was in my mid-20s that my increase of alcohol happened around my mid-20s, late 20s. And I noticed that I was going out more, like 3 or 4 times a week, and still working full-time job. And, in your 20s, you have tons of energy. That's not a problem. So I was doing that, and then, was drinking sociably, and then sociably at home, and then all the time at home. I went from a 6-pack to a 12-pack to a case of beer a week. And then I found myself drinking too often, even during work hours, even when I had a job close to home. I could go home for lunch, have lunch, and have a drink. And go back to work. And then there were times I would actually bring a soda bottle, and then those little small miniatures that they have in the package stores that they serve on the airplane, those little miniature bottles of gin and tequila. I would have a couple of those in my car at all times. And I would, if I was working late or whatever, I would just open a can, put whatever in it, and continue. Anyway, so, but it was one of those things that I noticed but didn't notice. I was too much having fun. And I increased the drinking because of life's pressures. I was pretty much, out on my own for the first time, with bills and working and life, relationships. But, drinking for me was an escape from the things I didn't want to deal with, think about, just didn't want to address, to mask some of the hurt, the pain that I had been through mentally, physically, and emotionally. There's different reasons for it. And, wasn't obvious at the time, but, the devil played on that. All my weaknesses and my insecurities, all the hurts and pains. And that, just thinking about that or feeling those negative feelings made me want to drink even more, because it was a numbing effect in a sense, right? To numb the pain. But it wasn't until I started dating this guy, maybe 2-3 months in, and he brought to my attention that I was drinking every time he saw me. Every time we would get together, he was like, you have a cup in your hand, or we go out to dinner, you want to drink. It's like you're always drinking. And initially I was defensive. And I was like, no, I don't. It's like, yeah, you do. And I was like, no. And he said, yeah. And then I thought about it. I really stopped to think about it, thought about it. I thought about it when he said it at the time. And then I thought about it a lot more when I was home alone. And he was right. I had a drink every time. And I couldn't deny that. But I hadn't paid attention how much I was drinking on a daily or weekly basis. So that's when I began to take steps in, trying to stop drinking. So what I did, instead of buying a case a week, I would buy, a 6-pack or a 12-pack or 6-pack. So I decreased the amount of alcohol that I would purchase. Even when I went out, I would limit, to 1 drink. I just started to cut back. But I noticed that it was really hard to do that, especially when I was out socializing a couple of times a week. So I cut back on socializing as much. I didn't know what else to do, but I felt that I needed to distance myself from environments that allowed me or pulled me in to drink. So I don't think even at the time no one really knew how much I was consuming. I didn't even know how much I was consuming. But I made those steps, and I went into prayer because I didn't want to end up like any of my relatives who had this addiction. I just didn't. I knew for me it would be a quick downward spiral to a dead end, to nothingness. Pretty much all that I had worked for and was building would just go to the wayside. So I began to pray. I didn't want to feel the need to drink. I didn't want the craving, the urges, but it was really because I was just uncomfortable dealing with emotional issues, because no one ever taught me how to deal with emotions, right? I could only go by what I saw or experienced through the adults, or how they dealt with things, right? But when I prayed with an open mind, an open heart, and open arms, that's when I began to slowly but surely see changes. I began to feel differently about alcohol. Even when I would drink, it wouldn't taste the same. I couldn't drink as much. The cravings or the urges to drink began to decrease more and more, and to the point where I knew my limit. I knew how it was going to make me feel afterwards. So I really didn't like that. It's not like I would get drunk or wasted or anything like that. That was very, very rare. But it was the simple fact that it just didn't feel good anymore. So for me, that's how God, the divine creator, helped me with my addiction to alcohol. It was a slow, gradual process, but it worked, because even to this day, I don't drink. It is socially most times, and that's not often, especially with the pandemic, because I still have alcohol in my home from 2 or 3 years ago that I have yet to touch. Someone brought it over years ago and left it, and it's still here, but I haven't touched it, and I have no desire to touch it. But this is what I know for me and my family. Yes, this addiction ran through my family for, I know, 3 generations. And it really took a toll on bodies, the soul, the mind, and, the whole family dynamic. For me, I made a conscious decision that I wanted to stop, that I didn't want to be like them. I didn't want to end up in a dead end situation, and that I needed help. And I asked for it and I received it. So for anyone out there dealing with any addiction, just know that you're not alone. You can overcome it for sure. Pray wholeheartedly. Be honest with yourself about it all and where you are in your life and what steps, small changes you can do to help yourself and to show God, the divine creator, that you're serious about it. Because that was decades ago, and I'm not an alcoholic. And I do believe that I broke that generational curse in my family. Because now the next generation doesn't have alcohol or drug issues, so it stopped with me. So again, anyone dealing with any type of addiction, seek help, pray, and be willing to do whatever it is you need to do to fight this battle, because it's not a fleshly battle. It is absolutely a spiritual battle. And you have help. You have angelic help. You have divine help There is divine intervention. You just have to call on it. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. Hope this helps someone. And until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye.